Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the IS-BAO Progressive Stage 3 Roundtable. Thanks for your patience. We're having just one or two little technical issues on our end, but I want to just go through some housekeeping items. I'm Catherine Hilst. I'm the IS-BAO Operations Manager, and I will be your moderator in the background here for today. Just a couple of things. I wanted to let you know that all attendees are on mute due to the size of the audience, but you do have a question box in your control panel, and I have posted a couple of announcements there. That is where you can submit questions for the panel. We'll have this discussion for the next 45-50 minutes, and then a question and answer session afterwards to go through all of your questions and any other things that might have come up by then. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce our IS-BAO Program Director, Andrew Karras. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you, Catherine. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's roundtable. As well, I want to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their schedules to talk about safety culture and the development of your workforce. My name is Andrew Karras, and I'm the Program Director for IS-BAO. The IS-BAO program is entering its 20th year, and since its start has assisted over 1,500 operators from around the world with the implementation of SMS in their flight operations. Not only is SMS an integral part of the safe operation of aircraft and equipment, it builds a foundation for a workplace culture that brings value and efficiency to your current and future workforce. The wonderful panel of professionals today has decades of experience in business aviation and represent aircraft maintenance, commercial operations, non-commercial operations, and personnel recruiting. I'll hand it over to Catherine for introductions of our panel, and thank you again for all attending today.
Thanks, Andrew. So appreciated. All right, so I would like to introduce our illustrious panel. For those of you that have been to the roundtables, you've probably seen Blair before. Blair is the manager of aircraft maintenance and aviation facilities for a large Texas-based flight department. He has 37 years of corporate flight department experience, 22 years with his current flight department. He has a Bachelor of Science and an MBA in aviation from Embry-Riddle. Is an NBAA certified aviation manager and has been an IS-BAO auditor since 2011. He's a member of the Maintenance Directors Roundtable and has served on the Gulfstream, Honeywell, and Rolls-Royce customer advisory boards. Stan Medved is here as the manager and chief pilot of a major international corporate flight department based in the Netherlands. He has fixed and rotary wing pilot ratings and is also a qualified aeronautical engineer. Stan chairs the IS-BAO Standards Board. Thank you for that, Stan. And the European Business Aviation Association Safety Committee, and is a board member of the British Business and General Aviation Association, with whom I believe he is meeting as we speak. Geoff Makely is here with us from Mira Vista Aviation. You'll see him when he arrives. We were just commenting that this is just like the pre-COVID days when someone got stuck in traffic, which apparently is what happened. But Geoff will be joining us. He is with Mira Vista Aviation and is the executive vice president of the organization. He had also been in roles including director of safety, director of sales and operations with multiple companies in the private aviation industry, and just completed serving as an advisory board member of the College of Aeronautics at Florida Tech in Melbourne, Florida. And last on my list here, but not least, is Jennifer Pickerel, who is the Vice President of Aviation Personnel International. She has a deep understanding of the workforce challenges facing the industry today, and during the talent assessment process, she identifies the client's professional needs, both from an aviation and a cultural standpoint, and then matches them up with a top slate of highly vetted, qualified API registered professionals. She's co-chair of NBAA's Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. Thank you all so much for being here today. And with that, I will we're going to move the conversation to this discussion of safety culture and the development of your workforce, and looking at evolving a safety culture that attracts people and keeps them engaged. So there's some talking points here, and with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer to start off the conversation. Thanks, Jennifer, very much for being here today. Oh, and Geoff has arrived. Hi, Geoff. I wanted to have video of you running in your office door with your cup of coffee, but here you are. Thanks for being here. And Jennifer,
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you. Oh, you do have your cup of coffee. Good.
There is. Well, thank you, Catherine. And really, I'm honored to be here. I was honored by the invitation. Thank you, Andrew. And I'm honored to be part of this panel. I mean, look at these people that I'm sitting next to. So thank you for the opportunity. When Andrew first reached out to me, he wanted to know, how does safety relate to acquiring talent, right? What is the relationship there? And I want to just start by prefacing that the firm that I work for is a business aviation recruiting and consulting firm, HR consulting firm. And we work primarily with Part 91 aviation. That's just our niche. We've been around for 50 years. Now, the reason I mention any of this is because I want to get across that we have a database of candidates, and the majority of our candidates are passive job seekers. Okay, so these are people who ideally are really happy in their current job and come to us and register because they want their next best job. We represent everything from maintenance technicians to leadership to pilots to operations and everything in between. The reason I share this is because the feedback from our candidates, based on who they are, the type of opportunities they are looking for, I think would be really relevant to a lot of your operations that you're managing or part of. One of the things that has stood out to us really strongly, especially as the talent market becomes more and more competitive, I feel for all of you out there, we know that there is a talent shortage. It's not just pilots, it's maintenance, it's everything in between, right? There's the great migration, the great upgrade, you can call it whatever you want, but we're all in the same boat. So we need to know what is appealing to the talent pool out there, especially the talent that you want, the talent who ascribes to be part of a safe environment, who ascribes to be part of a professional organization. And that's what I wanted to start by telling you is, for us, when we're speaking with our candidates and we're talking about the opportunities that we represent, one of the first conversations we have is about safety. And that conversation is often driven by candidate. They want to know, first and foremost, the very first step on that pedigree of safety is, are they IS-BAO registered? That is a very, very important piece of what they want to know. If so, what stage? If at what stage, for how long? Right? These are really important questions, but it goes much deeper than that. That's just the first step. Then they also want to know, is there a safety manager? Is there a safety officer? Are there opportunities to go to USC safety school? Do they have a just culture? That's a very big one. Do they understand and talk about or discuss psychological safety in the flight department? These are all really, really important things for the type of talent that you will likely be looking for, right? So if you want to be competitive, you should shine a light on all those attributes of your flight department. These are the things that are going to attract the kind of talent that you're looking for. So I want to give you a really quick example. We have our clients fill out a questionnaire before they retain us for our services. One of the questions is, tell us about the training that you undergo every year. So one flight department might say, we go to flight safety or CAE twice a year, and we have some kind of, med-air air care safety practices, and we're IS-BAO stage 3, okay? I want to just share with you, comparatively, a flight department that I recently worked with who had people knocking down their door for talent when I went out into the marketplace representing them. And this is the training that they shared on our form: international procedures, wet ditch training, upset recovery, EVAS, vision safe, high altitude physiology at UND, CPR through med-air, ASAP, and SMS. So you tell me, if you're a candidate and you hear that level of safety practice and annual training versus less than, right? It's going to make a difference. It absolutely is going to make a difference, likely to the type of candidate pool that you are trying to attract. So that was the first thing I just wanted to get out the gate. And that was the conversation that Andrew and I had. How do these things relate? What does one have to do with the other? The other thing I just want to make clear before I pass this off to Stan, most likely, is that not only does the safety culture talk about the priorities of the flight department and the corporate enterprise, if you're part of a corporate enterprise, it's also reflective of a degree of professionalism, right? This isn't the Wild West anymore. And the candidates that you're looking for aren't looking for flexibility in safety. They're looking for SOPs. They're looking for a flight operations manual. They want to know what your SMS practices are. So to be competitive and modern, you really need to have pride and document and make it accessible to the candidates that you're entertaining, the level of safety that you practice and how you practice it. I also have people ask, do they have FOQA? How do they use FOQA? Is there going to be any punitive actions taken against me if I fill out a safety report? So it's not just kind of what you have written in your handbook, it's how you actually implement it and practice it and exercise it. Really smart candidates are going to, ask those really tough questions. So that's just one perspective from a recruiter's side who's likely talking to some of the talent that you might want to bring onto your team. And I think, Stan, you had a story that might reflect some of the things that I'm talking about. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to you.
Yeah. No, thanks, Jennifer. And hello, everyone. And great to have so many people online. And also, it's a privilege also to be invited to take part in this panel discussion. Look, the story, we in our flight department have extremely low turnover. People tend to join and stay for a long time, and we try to work out why and try to understand why people want to stay, why people want to join us. But before I sort of talk about some of the things that we do, just want to relate a story about a young guy about 15 years ago or so. He had got his commercial pilot's license, but he only had just got the license and not much else. He was working at the FBO that we operate from, and he wanted to join us. That was his dream or ambition to join our flight department, but he had way too little experience for us at the time. So he went off and he did some other flying. He flew with some charter operators, then got involved in some business aviation at different times. Then we had a vacancy for a captain, but he still didn't have enough experience for us. So he went away, ended up in the Middle East flying a VIP 737 over there. And then we were looking to recruit a co-pilot. And by this stage, he had too much experience for that role. And so he missed out again. He ended up with a major European airline. He ended up becoming a 787 captain with that airline. And then we had an opening for a contract pilot, a part-time pilot. He willingly gave up that position, moved away from the UK back to the Netherlands to get a part-time job as a co-pilot with us. And we asked him, well, why? And he said, well, I've always looked up to you guys, and it's all about the training. It's a just culture. It's the resources. It's the attitude that we have in the company. And that really spoke a lot for someone to give up, a well-paid senior position as a captain to come to us as a co-pilot and contractor. And now he's been with us for a couple of years. He's now moved into a permanent position and he's going through his upgrade training. And he's now where he really wanted to be.
This is Blair. Hi everybody. I hope you're all enjoying it so far with Jennifer and Stan. And yes, what Jennifer laid out as far as the reputation, I'll call it of a flight department, what attracts most of the time is that reputation is always out in front of us as a person, as a flight department, as a company, that it shows professional. Just like you said, Stan, when you see that airplane that, excuse me, when you know it's their airplane, right? And you're like, geez, I'd like to know what that's all about. The same happened for me as well, that I've been very fortunate to be with this particular flight department for a long time, as you could tell, that you always kind of look to that and say, what is in that package? What do they do as far as safety goes, as far as standards goes, as far as professionalism? Very well said, Jennifer. We're all professionals. We all have to do our jobs, and we have to show, one, that our executives are safe, we're efficient, we recognize the importance of what we do. We are specialized time machines, I like to call us, that we get people where they need to go safely, quickly, and get them back home is just the same way. So all of those things that you mentioned, Jennifer, about our SMS system, are all of the CFOCAs, all of the just culture, all of those things that roll up into that idea that this particular flight department, what I like to say is the platform. There's plenty of steps to get to the platform, but we like to think of ourselves as the platform. This is where you want to end your career, rip up that resume, and finish out a very safe, qualified, and respected position with our flight department. I'll hand it off to Geoff, see if he has any more to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, from a 135 Part 91 management scenario here at Mira Vista, you know, we certainly have these challenges in a growth period of trying to attract good talent. And really what we try and do, you know, as we go through the different third-party audits, IS-BAO being fantastic with this, and being part of that has been absolutely amazing for us. As we get our younger pilots coming up through the ranks, maybe starting out in the citations, working their ways up into large cabin, ultra long range Gulfstreams that we're operating as well. We're looking at crew pairings that take, you know, a junior SIC co-pilot and pairing them with some of our senior international captains when that's allowed. And that really has been beneficial to, you know, on a double side of the coin, really. You get some of the younger pilots that are probably a little more technologically savvy in some of the new cockpits that are coming through. When you've got some of the old dogs that we have flying that really become the mentors for our younger junior captains coming up through the ranks, and it's proved to be a very successful program that we run through with our pilots, and it's been very valuable, very, very well received, and the younger crews are receptive, as well as those maybe in the twilight of their career, of passing down that knowledge of different things that went wrong at different times, and to kind of impart that upon the younger aviators has been amazing. Absolutely fantastic.
Geoff, I just sort of want to build a little bit on some of the things you said there, but around the mentoring, but also more around the well-being of people. Something that we've certainly seen during COVID is, you know, the stresses people are under, either at home, you know, health, you know, the economy and everything else, and wondering, you know, will I have a job and so on. And what we've been rolling out is a peer-to-peer mental health program. So, you know, and just putting together resources, and people have really appreciated that. And again, that's also linked in with the just culture approach that we have, you know, and some of the measures that we see also reflecting the just culture in our FOQA program. It is extremely rare for a crew not to actually self-report a FOQA event. So it's not the FOQA program tapping someone on the shoulder and say, hey, what happened here? No, they're going to the team saying, this is what I think happened, and I see the data. And it's really having that openness, which is fantastic. And it really just, you know, strengthens that the safety management system as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Stan. Well said. With the FOQA downloads, as you mentioned, you know, with a healthy safety culture, exactly as you said, they said, listen, we have this approach going into airport XYZ, and like you said, let me know when we're doing those downloads. I really want to take a look at that, and it's been fantastic to see that so well accepted within an organization, because listen, they want to go home to their families at night as well, you know, and so safety has to be paramount, not only for the owners that you're flying in the back, but also on a 135 arena, the client have in back as well, to get to their destination safely and in a professional manner. The FOQA program, again, well received, and I think probably one of the most valuable tools that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should go ahead and move on to, based upon the time, is psychological safety and involvement and engagement. And what I want to bring to the table is, in fact, we are in our third year now of the new Progressive Stage 3 audit system, or process, if you want to call it. So believe it or not, 3 years already. And we're taking one of our new pilots. In fact, as a maintenance guy, it seems a little different, but I am responsible for our IS-BAO Stage 3, Progressive Stage 3 system, and walking him through it yesterday of the protocol questions that I need him to review. And what that does for him is it allows him to look into all of our suite of manuals and all the process and procedures, whether, and this year will be emphasis on the maintenance side of the house, is look at all of that and see all of the process procedures that he doesn't have to necessarily be concerned with on the operational side, but he needs to see the bigger picture. And having young involvement early on to see all that and to be engaged. Engagement is key for us, is that everybody knows how what's inside every manual, how it works, what the processes are. Management of change of a manual is a big deal for us, as it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It takes a lot of committees, it takes a lot of process to the end of the day, and then a lot of distribution and a lot of communication of what that change was. And for having a new pilot come in and just kind of, he's going to have to dig deep into our manuals to see if those answers are correct for when the auditor does come. So that's what we like to do, is a lot of involvement, engagement. And in fact, to be quite frank, our salary treatments are based upon what have you brought to the table besides your skill set. Yes, you're a great pilot, and we appreciate all of that, and you're safe, and you do a great job. But what else can you bring for the flight department to be better, on that continual improvement cycle that we all want to be on and we all want to do, and IS-BAO is a big piece of that. What else can you bring to the table? And if we get them engaged early and get them often, then that allows them to feel what we were talking about before, is what is that flight department doing differently? They get to see the inside baseball, if you will, of how we do business.
I think that's a really good point there, talking about what else can they bring to the table, and something we see with some of our younger maintenance technicians in particular. They want to do more than just maintain the aircraft. They've got a lot of good ideas. They maybe it's just their generation that they want to be involved. They want to be part of the solutions, and so we actively give them things to do. One of the young maintenance technicians we have, he's really looking at sustainability options. What can we do to be a more sustainable flight department? What can we do better? How can we get better integration between the maintenance activity and flight operations and ground operations as well? So that's been really key as well, getting that involvement and engagement. And we're seeing that across the board, there's a real appetite for people to be engaged and be part of controlling and shaping the flight department.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Stan. We run into that here as well, and we'll have regular meetings between pilot staff and our maintenance techs here, particularly when it comes to chasing intermittent issues with different aircraft. You see that from time to time. And so to really see them come back from a flight, sit down with the maintenance tech, and then go over exactly what transpired, what did they see on the screen, what was the CAS message, when did it go away, different things along those lines, and really just kind of a cohesive unit in, chasing down diagnostic issues with different maintenance events from time to time. It's really been quite successful.
Look, I've got a question, sort of a question without notice for everyone. No one's mentioned the grubby subject of money. I mean, we don't pay the best in the industry. We pay well. We're somewhere in the middle, but we have people coming to us. We get hundreds of applications when we have a vacancy, and people don't leave. Why do you think? Or I believe it's that it's the safety program, the whole employee value proposition that wants people to say, what's your experience been?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stan, and that points directly to what's been happening to us over the last year and a half. Fortunately for our flight department, our maintenance staff has been rather stable. That seems to be a trend, if you will. But on the pilot side, the airlines have definitely poached us deeply because of either the signing bonuses or the thrill, the attraction, the quality of life. I mean, that's become a, for the younger crowd, which is perfectly understandable. Quality of life on the maintenance side or the operational side is key. That has to happen. They're looking for it. They're asking the questions about it. How does my schedule going to look? How's it going to work? For us in our particular corporation, there is a benefits package that is leaned towards your retirement years, so the salary is not as competitive, if you will. But again, it's about the overall structure of the corporation and their philosophies that doesn't sometimes fit well in the aviation sector, if you will. We've seen the increase in salaries. How do you convince your folks that control that account that, hey, we're a little different over here. We do things a little differently, and here's the need and here's the want. And some people have been very successful, and I applaud them for that, being able to increase the salary structure accordingly to match the market needs, while others, can't. There's not that capability to do that. So yes, salary, quality of life are, I would say, 1, 2, if not 2, 1. I mean, it's all become very, very apparent that quality of life and salary and being home every day or as much as possible has become very important. Geoff, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We experience that same exact thing. It's interesting as you get, some of the pilots maybe facing mandatory retirement from the 121 operations, different things like that. They're not quite ready to sit at home. Maybe the kids are ready off to college, different things along those lines. So we sometimes see a bit of a second career maybe on the 135 Part 91 side of the equation. And so that really has been interesting as well. It ties into that quality of life. They don't want to sit home anymore. They want to fly a little bit as well. And so it's really been neat, but you're both spot on when it comes to salary and quality of life. We certainly don't pay at the top end of the industry by any means at all. But we do pride ourselves on growing pilots up through there. And if they decide they do want to go to the 121, whether it be cargo or commercial airlines, anything along those lines, we've got enough of a network to really allow them, an interview. But given the condition right now, as long as there's a heartbeat and a clean first-class medical, they'll get an interview. It's really been fulfilling. And those pilots that you help advance through their ultimate career, again, word of mouth, say, hey, come check out this company. They helped me move on from this as I built my flight times. It's really been kind of a neat thing. And it's so long as you're genuine in your engagement with them, they tend to be loyal well beyond getting a paycheck from our company. It's been amazing. Great recruitment tool as well.
And look, Geoff, if someone does go, and people leave companies for a whole lot of reasons, but if they've left on good terms and you've actually, they've developed and grown, then you're putting back into the industry as well. You're putting a professional pilot in with a Part 121 operator, for example.
That's exactly right. We're starting to take a look at becoming a AAA farm team for one of the commercial airlines as well, for lack of a better term. Because they're having a tough time recruiting as well. And so when there's some reciprocation and they can direct, maybe some fresh out of flight school development and a citation, that type stuff, and then a year and a half, 2 years down the road, it's a pipeline for one of the commercial carriers, that seems to work out quite nicely as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I've had these discussions a lot, as you can tell, and sometimes I feel like if the standards for a flight department is, let's say, 3,000 hours or more, that's usually a seasoned pilot by then. But if you're needing to fill the void, do you make those judgment calls to not lower your standards, but maybe lower your requirements for folks to engage with you and you know, change that status a little bit so that you still get a quality, safe pilot, but your salary treatment matches their flight hours, if you will. It's kind of a could be a slippery slope, but at the same time, it allows you to, like you said, Geoff, is to be that AAA team. You like them for them to stay and be engaged, but at the same time, you get some quality pilots that hopefully at the end of the day stay with you and become those senior folks in the next you know, 10, 15 years that you gave them that opportunity, and hopefully you engage with them some loyalty on their end, that you brought them in early, stick with them, trained them, made them master aviators in the flight safety program or master tech as well, that you spent that time and energy, and you sent them to school, you've allowed them to go to college, tuition reimbursement, all these things that you invested in them for them to be a long-term career employee of your own.
So I like what you said, Blair, about reducing requirements, but not reducing your standards.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know, and some people, you know, I think erroneously sort of see requirements as a standard, but it's not. It's, you know, you're looking at their performance, you know, and generally the requirements, whether it's hours or experience, will, you know, be an indicator of someone's abilities, but not necessarily guaranteeing it. So, and I think a good solid SMS system will actually capture, you know, any gaps that you might have by lowering your requirements in an effort to maintain your standards. And then your SMS will pick up, well, what other things do we need to put in place to bring on board, say, a low-tide pilot or a new technician. And we've, you know, a few years ago, we took on a young lady with just on 1,000 hours experience, and she's turned out to be great. But we really had to, you know, almost tailor make a program for her to bring her up to speed, to make sure that we weren't dropping our standards in the flight department.
Yeah, I think it's wise that anybody in the hiring position be more creative than we have been in the past. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Stan, with reducing requirements but not standards. One thing I want to say on the compensation discussion is that people want to be paid what's competitive. The majority of the market wants to be paid what they're worth. Now, I think we all know that, and even in our world, we weed out, to the best of our ability, those who are primarily monetarily motivated, right? So if you fall in love with a candidate and you find in the negotiation that compensation drive keeps going up and up and up, my advice is let them go, right? Because chances are, if you hire someone who's primarily monetarily motivated, that they will leave you for the next higher paycheck. Okay, so the other things, the elements I just wanted to touch on that I think we missed when talking about compensation as a whole. Certainly long-term incentives, we're seeing a lot more of those in any way, shape, or form, right? It can be a bonus that they're eligible for after 2 years of hire. Some corporate enterprises have the opportunity to do RSUs and things of this sort. These are things we didn't see before on the technician and the pilot side specifically. In addition to that, what about professional development, right? That's another thing that a lot of candidates are asking us. If I go work for Geoff's organization, if I want to go to NBAA, if I want to become a CAM, if I want to go to USC, am I going to be encouraged to do that? Is there going to be any financial offset for me to do something like that? Also, where we lose out to commercial aviation is transparency. We can give a commercial pilot can look at a spreadsheet and see exactly where they're going to be and exactly how many years and exactly how much money, right? That's where business aviation has struggled, and we still do, right? There's not the same level of transparency. So I would really encourage all of you, to the best of your ability, to be able to articulate to the talent that you're hiring, this is our progression. This is the standard, not that we can't deviate from that. Because remember, one of the big differences between business aviation and commercial is that we are a performance-based environment. We are not a progression-based environment, right? And that's a really big distinction. When I go and talk to colleges, to the young flight students there, I talk about that a lot, right? What kind of environment best suits you? Get an understanding of what kind of culture you're looking for. If you work really hard and there's ample opportunities, look at the amount of opportunities we offer people in the business aviation sector versus commercial. And I don't mean it's an us versus them, but if we're talking about what separates us, that's a really important piece. And the other thing I just want to touch on, because we talked about psychological safety, but not as in depth as we could. And I just want to touch on the fact that this is a very divisive world. And we all know that, right? The culture has changed globally. So it's really important to stay keyed into what's happening in your flight department. I had a director of aviation call me 3 weeks ago, large flight department in Texas. Jennifer, I'm finding that I have to change my crew pairings because of some of the things that are going on in the world and how willingly people are discussing it, right? It can have a direct impact in your workplace. The line between personal and professional has blurred through COVID. And now when you add on top of that, the divisive nature of what's happening, you need to create a psychologically safe space, meaning you have to articulate to your team what's tolerated and what's not, right? If you have two pilots get into the cockpit and one has a sticker relative to one side of the aisle and one has a sticker on the other side of the aisle, what do you think is going to happen, right? Well, if you have a psychologically safe environment, no problem, right? But if you don't, there can be friction, and we all know that friction absolutely compromises safety in the cockpit. So I just want everyone to be mindful of when we talk about psychological safety, it doesn't just mean or just culture, it doesn't just mean I can raise my hand when there's a safety issue. It means I can come to Blair and say, someone is telling Jewish jokes and it's really offending me. Like, that's the state where we're at. You know, they need to know that if there's something that offends them or something that doesn't feel right for them internally, or if they're having another issue with another person on the team, they have somebody that they can come to and who will address it. So I will say to you that if you're wondering, gosh, do we have a psychologically safe environment where we are? If people come to you with tough conversations, chances are you're doing the right thing. If people feel comfortable bringing uncomfortable items to your attention, chances are you're on the right track. If you say to yourself, wow, nobody's ever said anything to me about anybody being uncomfortable, then I think you might need to reflect, right, on what really do people feel safe about, and can they voice their opinion if there's something that's making them feel uncomfortable or compromised. And even more so as we reach into different talent pools and we talk about diversity, et cetera, even more reason, right? That's a whole nother topic, but I'm just letting you know that as more and more people have diversity metrics on top of them that they need to tick, that's, we have to make sure that we're looking internally before we're looking externally, right? And just one last thing before I move off of that is really make sure that you understand and honestly reflect on your safety culture, because I have had clients say to me, oh, we're IS-BAO Stage 3, we're really steeped in SOPs, and they have multiple aircraft. I place a candidate there. 3 months later, the candidate comes to me and says, well, yes, they have SOPs. Yes, they have an SMS. Yes, they have an FOM. But when I fly with Geoff, he does everything this way. And when I fly with Stan, he does everything this way, right? So it's easy to advertise the different boxes that you've ticked of all the safety procedures and processes and programs you have, but how is it really practiced? And that was a surprise when I brought that feedback to the client. They didn't connect those dots. So just one, and I'll transition, and if any of you have anything to say on any of that, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, I think that consistency and walking the talk is really important. Just about every organisation will show a nice set of SOPs and ops manuals and so on, but as soon as you allow people to do their own thing, then and you just put yourself in the shoes of a new employee. They fly with they're working with Geoff, they with Blair or Andrew, and they just don't know, well, today I've got to act like this, or I've got to do this. It really, and that does compromise safety, absolutely. And we see, there's a measure when we go in to do our simulator training, had a case where when I just did my recurrent training with one of our contract pilots, and the examiner said, look, it's great, you're sticking to your SOPs, and it's really nice, it's clear that you guys have been flying together a lot. I've flown with this guy once on a 1-hour flight 4 years ago. But it's all about, and he's a contractor, so he doesn't fly with us as much as the other pilots, but he's following our SOPs to the letter as well. and not just the SOPs, but the whole operating framework in how we approach and manage the flight deck.
Yeah, standardization.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Regardless of, you know, 3 or 4 different captains that you're flying with, you know, the ideal program really has that standardization across all 4. Again, personalities are completely different, you know, as you're out on the road and going to dinner and, you know, that type of stuff. But when it comes to, you know, that plane is powered on and we're ready to go do our jobs, the expectations need to be standardized. And that proves to have the most engaging safety culture out there for this. So that's great.
Yeah, I totally agreed. We're one of the few that back when I had in my recent position now for the last 13 years, my boss at the time handed me the position and said, standardization is written across your forehead. So everybody sees it when you're talking. And that's been a challenge, quite frankly, along the time, because standardization on the maintenance side isn't really thought about, but it is super key to make sure that everybody's filling out the logbook entry the same, everybody's doing the right form the same, everybody's approaching the discrepancy, if you will, the same. The way we have to take care of our forms and our records, as you know, is very key to the whole reputation of the flight department, is the airplane, is the records and all that, because I always look at it as one day I got to sell this airplane, and is the reputation out in front. And then that pre-buy inspection for us is our test. We recently sold an aircraft, and we, you know, I'm just very proud of this fact, no discrepancies on a pre-buy inspection of an airplane that was 5 years old, nothing. And the buyer was like, I'm waiting for it, I'm waiting for it. And I said, there's nothing to tell. It's a perfect airplane. And that is the biggest test, I think, on the maintenance side, is that we've taken an airplane to the best standard and kept it to that standard the whole time. So standardization is key, no matter it's in the cockpit, whether it's on the hangar floor, standardization. And Jennifer, I'll speak to the, you know, if I get this right, diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of that is a player in standardization. When we sit in that cockpit, and in our flight department, there is a maintenance person on board flying with the airplane, all of that is equal. We're all professionals. We all have a job to do, and we need to act like it, look like it, especially for ourselves and for that executive in the back. And I always say to my folks is what happens in that cockpit or what happens in that cabin at 41,000 feet, and that 30-foot of cabin reflects upon the whole flight department. That's what they get to see. That is our interface at the time. And if we're professionals and we do our job correctly, that is super key for us. And that'll probably be on my tombstone when I pass away is standardization. But that's okay. That's a great standard to have.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think we should probably move on to mentoring based upon our time. Just make sure we capture everything. I'll tell one quick story to get it lit off for us. Is I've been mentoring, as you can tell, as Catherine listed off the many things that I've been doing over the years, is the Certified Aviation Manager, the MBAA CAM program. I was one of the very few of the program started back in 04, and I got it in 05, based upon, again, as you, Jennifer said, is those development opportunities, and that was one for me back in the day. And I've been mentoring folks ever since then, countless number of folks, and everybody's passed that I've mentored, so that's a good thing. But I think that is key for everybody to see the bigger picture. Remember that whole idea is about a flight department manager knowing what all the concepts, all the management leadership ideas based upon the flight department. And that's what that test is all about. So you see the whole picture. And I love mentoring folks, as you can tell, about that. I also, when I see a young individual, in fact, I'll be meeting her later today. Yes, her later today. She's a sales associate for an airplane that we've never flown. But I can see the want, the will, the willingness to learn and to grow in this. And I think as us with the older, with the gray hair, should give back. And I've been trying to give back for a long time now to make sure that the folks that are coming up in our next generation have all the tool sets, all the skill sets that they need to make our reputation as a flight department and for the industry the very best it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I had touched on before a little bit about the mentoring. You know, as you said, we want everyone involved. You know, anyone that's in a silo in their own department, it does not benefit the company overall. They need to have and understand whether it's dispatch, what the flight crews go through for an international trip, Euro control, whatever the case may be. As simple as, you know, fuel uplifts, whether in Paris, different things like that. Some of the challenges that you see, you know, when you listen to the flight crews going through. It's important from a maintenance standpoint as well. When I mentioned sitting down, going through this, you know, this is for newer pilots. Hey, this is how your write-up should be based on what you're telling me. You know, that mentoring goes across all the different departments. And, you know, when you're very successful with that, again, your retention is there. The quality of candidates from word of mouth, referrals from, you know, different maintenance employee may say, hey, I always talk to this one pilot. We're working on their plane. It's separate. I suggested maybe he go interview with you. You know, you'd be amazed at the number of personnel opportunities that are presented just from a mentoring aspect across different departments. It is key in being successful in running a safe flight department, regardless if you're 91, 135, 121, those are the key ingredients for sure.
Yeah, totally agree, Geoff. And I think Catherine's popped in, so we'll hand it back to her.
I'm enthralled with the conversation, and as you're talking about all of these things, some questions are coming in, and you've kind of been working down the bullet list here, and a question came in that I think goes right to the maintenance one, so I thought I would throw this in here. This one is from a safety manager of a Stage 3 IS-BAO corporate company in Europe, and they said they've improved a lot during the IS-BAO journey since they started in 2014. The hardest thing we encountered was, and still is, the safety culture of our technicians working for their Part 145 EASA maintenance organization. And I think this goes to a lot of what you're talking about. While pilots are now born with a better safety culture and understanding of the purpose and use of the SMS, many technicians may still see it as an enemy, i.e. reporting someone or something wrong, or as a system that can be used to save them when things go wrong from their side, like a shield. Developing a simple and genuine safety culture in them has been a challenge that we're still working on. Does anyone have the same experience? How did you deal with it? Renewing the package with the new younger hires is one way we've tried, and a major review of the organization and attention to it by the accountable manager, safety manager, and the CM is another thing we're improving. I'm curious about your experiences. Thank you.
Sure, I'll do my best to answer that. Yes, the safety culture on the hangar floor is just as important, as we all know, as what goes on in the cockpit. The biggest thing that we did, one is when our corporation brought our SMS to us as a flight department, you know, to be quite honest, our maintenance side just kind of lagged behind, if you will, just kind of distrusted the whole idea, didn't feel like we need to engage in all that. We know how to take care of airplanes. We don't need somebody to add all this extra stuff, if you will, into it. But as you can tell, being engaged in the IS-BAO program on the maintenance side and running that program is to do our best to dispel those ideas and to work together for the better good. And the idea is that, yes, I've been in my office for this last hour, but that's not where I hang out. I hang out with those guys on the hangar floor and show that leadership commitment and show that we're not going to have any rumor mills. My biggest thing is to stop the rumors, to discuss it, to walk through it, and have that safety culture built into those folks that they're willing and able to sit there and discuss just as much as you said, Stan, to come in and say, you know what, we didn't do this quite right. Let's talk about how can we do this better. We do that all the time with the folks. And again, I think it comes from the top. And I know that from that question that person's trying to do that, but it just makes, you just have to walk in their shoes, be with them side by side, knowing that, look, we're going to take care of it. We're going to work through this. We're going to have continuous improvement with not a bunch of finger pointing. And it's hard for us maintenance folks to trust that, but that's what needs to happen. I hope that answered the question.
I think, Blair, we had a very similar experience with our safety management system. And, we had one example where, our technicians do a fantastic job, and, they didn't feel that, they needed to formalize things as much as we did on the flight op side. And, we'd picked up some gaps possibly in some of their tool control. They all had personal toolboxes, but they said, look, we've got it all under control. Until one day when an aircraft was off on a C check and the service centre found a flashlight under the floor. And that actually, to be honest, shocked the technicians because they really thought that couldn't happen to them. And that was one of the triggers that actually, I think got them on board with it. And then also can't agree with you more, getting, being on the hangar floor, spending time with them, walking the talk. And whenever I make an error, and we all make mistakes, if I make an error in a tech log or something like that, it costs me an apple pie, and I've got to go down and take an apple pie to the engineers.
Yeah, totally agreed. Sometimes, we do not have personal toolboxes, but tool control, the story, the terrible stories we hear of them starting an engine with an engine cover or a tool, sitting in the inlet, and everybody forgot about it. And now we've bought the multi-million-dollar engine because of it. Hopefully, that's not the lightning effect the changing event. Hopefully, it's just a good rolling in. And again, that maintenance feels like we lag behind a little bit, but here we've done our best, as you can tell, to make sure that we're equals, and that that kind of goes to that maintenance operation interface, developing trust. If we both are working along together, just as much as I was mentoring a brand new pilot into the IS-BAO program, that's, to me, that's the key. If maintenance is now driving the boat, if you will, a little bit, that really says that maintenance and operations are not only partners in our operations, but partners in SMS as well.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on that before I go to the next question? I think we've segued into the question and answer portion of this, and given time, that's appropriate. But any other thoughts on that last bullet point? All right. So this one says, would you consider that a whistleblower policy is important for a proper SMS and demonstrates top management's approach towards supporting a just culture? Jennifer, what do you think about that?
I think I might defer to the SMS experts on that one. I don't want to speak out of turn.
We have, I wouldn't call it whistleblowing, but we have what we call an observation tool, and we do things that are safe, things that we observe that are safe, and things that are needs for improvement. So we kind of course, with linguistics, tried to say, something bad happened today, that we just need some improvement, and that can turn into all the way through a investigation, to a change in the manual, to a change in the process. And that's what it should do, is be able to sit there and look back and put some other folks in it. And that's another reason for engagement is we take a handful of the pilot groups and we take the maintenance groups and we look at this problem together and to say, what is the best way that we can work together to solve this so that need for improvement is improved. And it was, go through all the risk assessment ideas of where does this fit in the tree and how can we fix it so that everybody knows about it, and then talk about it, discuss it. Don't just say, you know, we took care of that, and you don't need to know the details. The details, everybody wants to know the details, so let the details come out in a way that is positive and is right for the safety culture.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. I mean, you know, when you hear the term whistleblower, you know, what it immediately construes to me is that there's not, you know, there might be a fear of retribution. There's not open communications and dialogue on different things, which certainly needs to be addressed. You know, there's several things. When I started out in the air freight industry way back when, they had something called the ricochet report. You know, the ricochet was we missed our target, you know, and why, what happened. It could be, you know, submitted anonymously, but it got addressed. It got elevated to the director of safety, and then regardless of what department it came through, that was addressed, and you discuss the details, because the details matter. Everyone wants to understand. You know, anything you leave vague or unanswered, people fill in with their own rationale. You know, they are going to draw their own conclusion. And it's not about controlling the narrative or anything along those lines. It's open, honest communications. And so, you know, the companies that can achieve that and have that are going to have the most success, without a doubt.
That whole concept of reframing, I think, is great. You guys just, you know, whistleblower, we all sort of jump to a certain image, and to reframe it within the context of your just culture. You guys just gave some great examples of that. And it actually leads into another question here that basically is a comment that says standardization is great, but it shouldn't stifle improvement and reevaluation. There has to be a mechanism to change procedures as circumstances change. So in the context of this discussion and ongoing, how do you guys, Geoff, you just gave an example of reframing that. What are the mechanisms, and is that in the context of your SMS, or is it part of your just culture? What are some of the things that you all do to encourage that conversation and transparency?
Yeah, really. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, you know, I mean, standardization, standardization doesn't mean that you stay static and don't change things ever. You know, and you've got to be, you know, as an operator or a management team or a leader, you've got to be able to be prepared to get feedback and change, because we don't make the right decisions all the time in management. We don't always come up with the right procedure or SOP, and you know, use the evidence, you know, through, you know, whether it's incident reports, feedback from crews, and then be prepared to change. And we change our, we spend a lot of time and effort on making sure we're standardized, but also if we see the need to improve, we won't hesitate to improve or change or simplify. Actually, simplification is a big push as well. Not to make, because you don't solve the world and all the issues by just having more SOPs. Sometimes it's fewer SOPs, and making them clearer and simpler is better. But fully agree with, you know, the observational comment from the person left. Yeah, we don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to stifle, you know, feedback from crews, but people on the line or the hangar floor, because they're working with those procedures. They're the ones who know if they work or not. And if they, you know, and all we ask is that they've got the evidence. It's not, oh, you know, we used to do it this way at company X, or I don't like it. But if there's a really good reason for it, by all means, change.
Yeah, let me speak to that, since I threw the standardization flag up there nice and high. Just this week, we have a what we call the Maintenance Standardization Committee, where all of the leadership of the maintenance side comes together. And believe it or not, we're working on revision 30 of our maintenance control manual. So if that doesn't show that we're constantly changing and improving based upon either things that we see, based upon things that other folks have seen, based upon this IS-BAO audit, based upon our internal assessment that we're going through right now of our own SMS. So the manual is full of corrections, if you will, or improvements, like we're about to roll out the electronic discrepancies in MEL usage through CMP. So we're adding that to the game. So we're always constantly either fixing what it wasn't right in the first place, improving upon it, or again, sometimes there's the fine line between standardization and a technique. And I'm all about, if a technique fills the standardization spot, how you turn that wrench left or right or sideways, or how you made that you joined that approach. That's all about sometimes technique, and technique is great, and it needs to stay technique, not so much a standard. As long as the standard is written in a way that technique can solve the riddle based upon your personal desires and your wants, that's what it's all about, as long as we get there to the end.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Blair, I mean, yeah, I think it's a really good indicator of the willingness to change and a mature operation where you do look at the revision, revision 30 or whatever. So it is a living document. But what we find what's really critically important is to then communicate the changes.
Yes.
You know, why the changes were made, and particularly it's reinforcing if those changes are made because of feedback from the line, that encourages people to be more proactive as well. But then communicate, document the changes, train the changes, just so everyone is on the same page.
Yes, agreed. That's a big piece of is you can make those changes, but if they're not communicated, trained to, and told this backstory, right? Everybody wants to know the details. Why did you make this change? And so I actually done this for a long time now. Once the year's done, I go to every one of the maintenance folks, and we have a nice little meeting, and we walk through all of our meeting minutes, all of our changes, the revisions, DocuSign, everything, so that they fully understand the reasoning behind it. They want to know the story behind the change, and then this is what we need you to go forward. And sometimes those conversations, we say, there's a, well, can I do it this way? Okay, that's a technique, that's great. But as long as we meet the standard, that's what it's all about. Or, hey, did you guys think about this? Okay, that'll be revision 31 now, you know? So that's how we do that.
Awesome. I think in the interest of time, we have enough time for another question that I think is going to bring it back to that very first bullet in the recruiting and retaining talent. There's a couple of parts to this, but what are the types of questions that an organization might expect from applicants to your organization, so that an operator can be prepared for that? What are we seeing from the folks that are looking to get into the industry? And then kind of dovetailing another question in here, where what are you doing to increase quality of life if a salary can't be increased, or you know, are there retirement options, things like that? But I think what are you seeing as people are coming in, and what types of questions are coming in, and how can you address that within your approach to attracting and retaining talent?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one. I think that what you'll find is once a candidate understands the basic structure and culture of your organization, they're going to dive deeper beyond. I guess what I'm trying to say is, because it's such a competitive market, if you tick all these boxes that I need as a candidate, I'm going to dive even deeper. So talk to me about what my professional development opportunities are. Tell me, Geoff, what do you love about working here? What would you change about working here? Talk to me about standardization versus technique. I mean, all of these things. I think what you can expect is that you're going to get questions much beyond what the compensation is, much beyond what the quality of life is. Once you've addressed those items, is that you have to be prepared to kind of talk to the soft skills, the softer side, the intangibles, if you will. And to do that accurately, you have to, again, have a really honest understanding of your culture. And how do you get an honest understanding of your culture? Talk to your team. I would ask them. You know, we have people coming in for interview. What was it like when you first started here? What struck you? What struck you as something that should be changed? What struck you as something that sold you? You knew you were at the right place, right? You really have to understand who you are before you can sell who you are, right? So I think that's the first key. The other thing is, listen really carefully to the type of questions that a candidate is asking. We all know that our motivations change throughout the course of our life. So when you're young, perhaps compensation is a little bit lower on your priority list, and international experience is really high, right? So you're driving for experience, not as concerned about the compensation. But that changes. Now you're middle-aged, now you want quality of life, now you're thinking about your retirement, right? So you really have to key in on who you're talking to. Don't make the mistake of treating all candidates the same as far as when you peel back the onion, right? So of course you should have standardized questions. You should have an interview process that, you know, reduces confirmation bias and other forms of bias. But beyond that, listen to the questions that they're asking, because it'll tell you a lot about what their motivations are, right? I think that's a really great indicator of who you're talking to and if you can meet their needs. The other thing I would just say relative to the piece about quality of life, Catherine, there are all kinds of different scenarios. I'll give you a great example really quickly. I just had a client who hired 2 pilots through us, and both the pilots had a higher salary expectation than the client could meet, okay? So the client dove deeper. You know, what other motivations are there? What else can we do? Well, what they were able to do was extend a bonus over the course of the next 3 years, so that ultimately the candidates were recouping the salary that they were hoping, right? So it wasn't a straight salary increase. It was, here's your salary. This is what we can do without causing internal equity issues, because that's often an issue, right? Or you're banded in a corporate enterprise into a certain salary category and you can't go up or down because you can't have your pilots making more than your senior VPs, right? That's a real thing. So there can be creative ways that you address that. And that's what I really applauded this client for doing, is they put together a really thoughtful offer for each candidate, right? Similar in scope, similar in quantifiable dollars, but to meet the needs of each candidate, they constructed it a different way. Also, hard days off, right? You have to, I have to tell you, the quality of life piece is no joke. And it, you know, we often have a very hard time taking on any projects that are 2 pilot operations anymore. You know, this is a thing that is harder and harder to achieve, because there are so many opportunities now out there that are offering quality of life. So how do you do that? Look at your staffing model. Can you incorporate hard days off? You know, a day off is not a day off in the rearview mirror. We all know that, right? You can't say, well, you only fly 12 days a month. Well, the other 15 days I'm on call, so I'm not really achieving a quality of life. So I think that's another great way to, or personal days or anything. And then once you implement that, it has to be sacred. I just had a candidate call me who we placed a year ago, and he said they promised me hard days off and they don't honor them, right? So it's all about, again, the execution. We can promise the world, but if you don't execute, I guarantee the candidate will move on to somebody who will. So those are just some tips that I would use to address that question, Catherine.
Wow, thank you. Any other thoughts from the rest of our illustrious panel?
Yeah,
I think sorry,
oh, everybody, awesome.
all yours.
I mean, the hard days off, absolutely. You know, and the comment, you know, I've certainly known of flight departments where they said, well, actually, you didn't fly last Thursday, so that's your rostered day off. You know, but you've got to allow people to plan. You know, and no, they've got families, all personal interests, and so and certainly in our team, I mean, they do treat those hard days off as sacred. And if you take one away, I mean, sometimes we have to ask to take one back because of the realities of scheduling, but we ask and we look. You know, and if they say no, absolutely not, then well, so be it. There's that also in terms of, you know, if we've got someone's got to commute a little bit further to get to the airport or at the end of a long trip, we won't hesitate to put them up in a hotel or put them in a taxi to go home. You know, we don't say, well, you know, you can pay, you know, we cover the cost of that. One, we want to keep them safe, not you know, write themselves off on the highway driving home, but also they don't feel compelled to go that because they know they've got the option at no cost to them. And then also showing people flexibility when it comes to leave and training and so on as well. But it ends up being a discussion and working together to see what they want. And like you said, Jennifer, everyone is different and they've got different needs depending on how old they are, their personal circumstances, and so on.
Yeah, no, fantastic. You know, what we've run into, again, it depends on the candidate. Is it a pilot? Is it a maintenance technician? Is it admin? Is it finance? You know, we can go through that whole list. You know, from the get-go, as the candidate's coming through, to have a good, you know, 3 or 4 member panel that's doing the interview has been quite successful. You get a lot of different questions that come specific to who's sitting at the table during the interview or on the call. In addition to that, we will try and set up separate calls. If there's you know, a replacement position coming through, we will have them talk with the person that is leaving. Perhaps they're going on to the majors, doing whatever. We will set up a time for them to talk independently with a number of different department heads, standard line technicians, whatever the case may be, because they'll have that open dialogue. It's just not me selling the company. You know, oh, it's great, we'll do this, you got your hard days off, whatever. We want them down into the nitty gritty to deep dive as best they can with specific people within the organization. You have to be able to air the challenges that they're going to have. It sets the expectations properly to retain candidates for a long-term position within your company. And so we've been quite fortunate in having that type of engagement with different personnel internally with the candidates applying for jobs.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'll, if we got time, I'll add what's been key for us for these many years is the one thing that we did pretty quickly after I got this position was get all of the maintenance staff on a salary treatment, as in their salary folk, just like the pilots. They don't punch a clock. They don't have to worry about how many hours they worked. So they're salary non-exempt, meaning they will get overtime if they worked over 40 a week, and they keep their time sheet only for that reason, not for anything else. If somebody told me they worked 30 hours this week, that's great. That means that we're doing a good job. So the biggest thing that I always tell folks when the other folks call me is I say, we work the schedule, not the clock. We work just like the pilots do. We make sure that everything is taken care of. We don't leave anything unattended to, as in the hangar or the aircraft. Make sure everything's up to snuff. But there's, if everything is gone and the hangar's emptied and everybody's out flying, or everything is there, it's a Friday and it's noon and we're all feeling good about where we're at, let's go home. Let's go home. Give them back some hours. So that's the one thing that has helped us greatly is work the schedule, not the clock. Be paid on a salary compensation, just like the pilots. They're not worried about how many hours they worked a week, nor should we. We are one and the same. We're equals, and we should be treated the same way from the corporation. And luckily, we got that through and understood. And that's done a lot for us on the maintenance side is making sure that we're treated the same with the corporation as far as how we're treated on our salaries. And we treat ourselves the same way. As if everything is done, let's go home. There's no reason to be here and look at each other. Let's go home.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We're a little over time, so I think I will wrap this up and express our thanks here at IS-BAO to our panelists for being here. Blair, Stan, Jennifer, Geoff, you guys are awesome, and I want to thank you for sharing your time with us and your expertise and your insights. I think that the takeaways that I've seen here are, you know, being clear about expectations, communicating, being creative, and you all have given us some great examples of that. Jennifer, thank you for the tips of things, you know, some lessons that are out there in this new day and age. So again, and thank you to everyone who has been here. I know we've gone a little over. This is recorded and will be available on the IBAC website under our webinar link. So we've done the questions. I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending from both me and Andrew, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our next roundtable. The schedule will be announced once we know what it is. And so with that, I will adjourn this. And once again, thank you so much to everyone for being here, and to Blair, Stan, Jennifer, and Geoff for your time today. Really appreciate it. Everyone fly safe, and we will see you down the line.
Great.